You knew we would get here at some point. This was, in fact, day 666 of the Trump administration. And tonight, as the president and his legal team await the next move of the Mueller investigation, the president seemed to indicate today he knows it's coming to an end.
The witch hunt, as I call it, should never have taken place. It continues to go on. I imagine it's ending now. From what I hear, it's ending. And I'm sure it'll be just fine. And you know why it's going to be just fine? Because there was no collusion.
Remember, it was just yesterday he called the inner workings of the investigation a total mess. The president's also been dealing with those written questions from investigators. The Washington Post spoke with Trump personal attorney Rudy Giuliani and reports this, quote, "The president has met with lawyers nearly every day this week in sessions to review his answers, including a 4-hour session Wednesday and 90 minutes Wednesday night. According to people familiar with the sessions, the questions, roughly 24, focusing on 5 topics, all predate Trump winning the 2016 presidential election. Trump's lawyers have not yet agreed to answer a larger set of questions that relate to Trump's time as president-elect and then as president, Giuliani said. Today, it was clearly important to this president to point out he has done all the work by himself."
Yeah, it's not, my lawyers aren't working on that. I'm working on that. I write the answers. My lawyers don't write answers. I write answers. I was asked a series of questions. I've answered them very easily. Very easily. I'm sure they're tricked up because, you know, they like to catch people. Gee, you know, was the weather sunny or was it rainy? He said it may have been a good day. It was rainy. Therefore, he told a lie. He perjured himself. OK, so you have to always be careful when you answer questions with people that probably have bad intentions. But no, it's the questions were very routinely answered by me. By me.
Trump was then asked if he submitted the responses himself.
I haven't submitted them yet. I just finished them. As you know, I've been a little bit busy, but it didn't take very long to do them, and they were my answers. I don't need lawyers to do that. Now, you need lawyers for submittal. You need lawyers to go over some of the answers, but they're not very difficult questions.
Now, according to the Washington Post, quote, Giuliani said the special counsel has not imposed a firm deadline, but he added that Trump's answers could be submitted Friday. Another person familiar with the effort said they expect Trump to turn over the answers before Thanksgiving. There is also new reporting tonight from the Associated Press, based on multiple sources, about what concerns the president the most these days. Quote, "For months, Trump has told confidants he fears that Donald Trump Jr. perhaps inadvertently broke the law by being untruthful with investigators in the aftermath of that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Kremlin-connected lawyer, according to one Republican close to the White House. Trump has also complained about efforts in the Senate by his longtime foe, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, to introduce legislation to protect the special counsel. Additionally, Trump has told confidants in recent days that he is deeply frustrated by widespread criticism of his choice of Matthew Whitaker for acting attorney general. The president also took note of news coverage of his former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, arriving in Washington this week, potentially to meet with Mueller's investigators. So that's a lot. There is also the news we reported here last night that because of an apparent mistake on a court filing, we now know the Justice Department has filed charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Josh Gerstein of Politico, who will join us in a moment, is the co-author of a new piece that says the same Donald Trump, quote, who declared his love for Assange's website during the 2016 contest, may have new concerns about whether the focus on Assange has a connection to special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia probe. In case you don't recall, here is some of what Trump expressed about WikiLeaks in the closing weeks of the campaign.
This just came out. WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks.
This WikiLeaks stuff is unbelievable. It tells you the inner heart. You got to read it.
They've got to start talking about WikiLeaks.
The wonder of WikiLeaks.
Oh, we love WikiLeaks. Boy, they have really, WikiLeaks. They have revealed a lot. WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks. Another one came in today. This WikiLeaks is like a treasure trove.
Boy, I love reading those WikiLeaks. That came out on WikiLeaks.
Well, with that, let's bring in our leadoff panel on a Friday night. The aforementioned Josh Gerstein, senior legal affairs contributor at Politico, former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, who spent 25 years as a federal prosecutor, and Daniel Goldman, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York and fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU School of Law. Good evening and welcome to you all. Joyce, I'd like to begin with you. Do you take the president at Scout's honor that this is all his work, that he just hasn't handed it in yet?
I think it's unlikely that the president answered the questions. I suspect that particularly coming off the sugar high that he had from the pre-midterm election campaign rallies that he was doing, sitting down to seriously, thoughtfully, and methodically answer these questions was something that he didn't want to do. He might have drafted answers, but the important thing, Brian, is he has adopted these answers as his own. He is on the record saying that these are his words and his thoughts, and he didn't need any help. And if there's anything in those answers that Mueller thinks has evidentiary value or is useful to him, they now belong to the president who has formally adopted them.
Excellent point. And so, Daniel, if you're representing Donald Trump and you hear those words, he spoke today at the White House about this being his work product, just hasn't been submitted. What goes on within you?
Well, I think Donald Trump is trying to navigate this very carefully, as we've seen over the last many months when he's negotiating this. What's interesting to me is whether this is the first step or the last step. In other words, according to Rudy Giuliani, and we always have to be circumspect when he speaks, this was only pre-election collusion questions. It did not relate to obstruction of justice investigation. It did not relate to anything within the transition period. And we know of a lot of meetings with Russians. Michael Flynn's guilty plea related to that transition period for false statements. So the question then becomes, is this all that he's going to be asked? Is Mueller going to accept this? Or is he going to push for him to answer more questions with the threat of a grand jury subpoena on the heels of that conversation?
Also, Joyce, one more quick one. What's the chance that what we're watching is a president who has just come out of these sessions with his lawyers, who have told him, in effect, how bad it is, and also his new guy is over at Justice, who I presume has checked in with the Mueller investigation and may have told the boss how bad it is?
You know, it's always been a mess. It's been clear from the point in time where Trump fired then FBI Director Jim Comey that all was not going to go well with this White House. And so leaving aside for a moment any of this pre-election collusion, which Mueller seems to be in the process of gathering some evidence about whether it reaches the president or not, the president has in real time in front of the American public engaged in collusion. It's very hard to see how he doesn't understand that the only protection he has is to the extent that DOJ policy keeps Mueller from indicting a sitting president. He may avoid formal indictment, but Mueller can tell the story of Trump's conduct through his indictments. He's issued these detailed indictments about hacking that have told a complete story. There's no reason to believe that Trump might show up as an unnamed, unindicted, but clearly identified co-conspirator when Mueller issues his final package of indictments.
So, Josh, you guys have led the way on the, let's call it the walls closing in reporting. There is, as I just kind of back-referenced, a lot of evidence of that this week.
Oh, yeah, there's a number of indications that people who are or were close to the president could be facing indictment shortly. I also began to pick up other indications from officials close to the Mueller investigation that it was working its way towards some sort of crescendo. I know that the president and the White House are describing it as moving towards a conclusion, and that's never exactly what I picked up. It was more along the lines that there was some sort of momentous kind of event expected in the weeks after the midterm elections, possibly an indictment, possibly a report. But as I say, I've never had anybody really give me firm indication that this meant that the investigation was coming to an end or a conclusion, more that it was coming to what could be a very pivotal moment and a very awkward and unpleasant moment for the White House.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.